Hey guys, this is Trent from Animal Warforge, and this is my tutorial on how to paint Plague Marines. This is my first tutorial, so bear with me if it's a little bit dodgy. Anyways, here we go. First off, we start off with a base coat of Loren Green or Loren Forest. Pretty much thin it down 1-to-1 with whatever thinning agent you use, and apply it all over the model, except for the gun and the melee weapon. Here he is base coated. Now we're going to use game color Plague Brown, and we're going to dry brush its highlights. Now imagine there's a source light coming from this angle here. This is where we want to paint those highlights to emulate that the light's been hitting that area. From a distance, hold your brush just far enough so you can give it a good sway and kind of guide it over the areas where the light's hitting the armor. You don't have to worry about hitting it all at once, just kind of get the core areas where it starts to hit the armor, and then you can work out the gradient and blending after you've kind of figured out where those areas are going to be. A tip for dry brushing is to try use the side of your brush to start off and kind of sweep it and whoosh it over the model. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I perceive it. Make sure you are using a completely dry brush, and don't even bother trying to thin down your paints. You're better off just using it straight out of the pot. Wipe off as much as you can, get a blank sheet of white paper, and you should be able to tell if there's enough of it. It should just leave enough pigment after you drag it across the paper. Don't forget to put some highlights in the back too. Even though the light might not hit it, it's still going to have some light reflecting from around it and still have that shine, and it also stops the model from being so dull and flat. I'm not using any special dry brush, it's just a number 3 brush which has worn down over time. I find it works fine. Still keep it clean, its bristles are just pushed out a bit. Works out quite well. Our next step afterwards is game color Dead Flesh from the Vallejo range. I'm going to put that on the highlights that we just did with Plague Brown, but try not to get rid of all the Plague Brown, but blend them in. It's going to give you the brighter highlights for the armor where the sun or the light is hitting. Don't forget to get behind the backpack. It's going to, give you those edge highlights, which you usually do at the end of doing your modeling and, well, your paint doing your model. It's going to work out quite well to do it now, and you'll see why a little bit later. If you don't have Dead Flesh, you can use Citadel Paint's Nurgling Green. It's pretty much the same color, it's just a little bit more green tinted. You might prefer that over Dead Flesh, but for these guys, because the other 6 that I've painted up in the last week are also Dead Flesh, I kind of wanted to keep the uniformity throughout them all. Once it's finished dry brushing, we're then going to use Testor's acrylic, not even acrylic, Testor's clear coat spray lacquer, or Laquer. Laquer sounds funnier. Laquer, it's like French, I think. I don't know. I'm a bit strange. We do this for 2 reasons. It's going to obviously clear coat the base highlights and coat that we have already on the model, and it's going to give us a barrier for our wash. We're going to wash it with Agrax Earthshade or Devlin Mud, whichever one you want to call it, because I only started about 6 months ago. I've picked up all of the names from the new range, so Agrax Earthshade it is for me. Pretty much chuck a butt ton of wash all over the model. This is going to give it all of those deep recesses and shadows in areas it should, and it doesn't matter if you're going to get shadows in areas where the light would be. It's going to just kind of blend in those tones of the highlights of the Plague Brown and Dead Flesh with the Loren Forest a little bit more. And the reason why we applied the clear coat, I took this off Les from Awesome Paint Job and some other Wargamer painters do this technique quite a lot. I find it amazing. Because wash is unpredictable, it helps us remove the wash with acrylic paint thinner. So you put it on there, and you get, for example, I'm using Tamiya X20A acrylic thinner. It allows you to remove any wash that you've placed on the model without damaging the paint underneath it, which is why we clear coated it. For this stage, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the thinner on a makeup pad, or if you don't have a makeup pad, you could use a Q-tip or a cotton bud, and you're going to wipe off the wash that you just applied, and after it's dried, obviously, and it's going to reveal the layer underneath, giving it a really nice contrast and brightness to the model, still leaving all those shadows where you'd usually have a wash. Let's get it in there. Right, there he is, all washed up and clean. He looks a bit better. Now, if you would like to, you can actually dry your models upside down for the wash. That would be a little bit better. I find it better too, because when light hits a model or a person, from on top, the shadows aren't going to be there. They're going to be on the bottom. The wash dries on the top of that layer, and obviously if you hang it upside down, it's going to dry on the bottom. Makes it a little bit better. Next, we add plague brown to the shoulder details. These could be the pustules that are on the Forge World kits, or the fly icon, or the skulls on the other side. Pretty much any detail that's on the shoulder pad I did in plague brown. Now, a handy little trick I like to use, I have my dry brusher handy, and because I use thin down paint, sometimes they unload on the model a bit more than you'd want them to, and a big puddle of paint will go onto your dark green base coat. For this, I take my dry brush, completely dry, and I just quickly wipe it off. It absorbs most of that paint without letting that paint pigment dry onto the model. Next we get Runefang Steel, or any other metallic colour that you would like to paint the weapons. Steel, gold, bronze, either way. You put this on the weapons, the bolt pistol, bolter, close combat weapon, all of the tubes and vents for the power pack as well. Anything that you want metallic and shiny. After that's dry, you want to mix up a 1:4 mix of Beasty brown to some kind of thinner, whether it be the water you wash your paintbrush with, or you might want to have your own separate one. I have one in a little dropper bottle. Most people like to use dropper bottles because it gives you an accurate measurement of how many drops to paint you're putting. Mix that together. I have a premix which I put matte varnish to. It gives it a nice little glaze wash feel. This we use for rust effects. As you can see here, I'm just applying it to all the dried silver bits, and that's going to be the start of my rusty effect for my weapons. You may need to do 1 or 2 coats for this. Depends on how thick you make the mixture itself. I'm happy to do 2 coats if necessary. It gives you more control of where you want the rust. You may even want to put rust other places. I put rust on little chips of armor around their leg pads, and where on normal Chaos Space Marines you'd paint gold or whatever. I put chips on there, so over time it's rusted up a little bit. I also put some in the shoulder pads as well to give it a bit of a separate colour. You don't have to worry about it too much if some silver appears from underneath it. That's kind of what you want. Don't forget to rust up the tubes on his face as well, and the stuff on his power pack. Next up, we do another dry brush. This is done with the same highlight color, whether it be Dead Flesh or Nurgling Green, whichever one you use for the main highlight after Playground. We're going to do this again just to, clean up that highlight a bit more and make it a bit brighter and green. Give it a lot of different tones. Another cool thing about dry brushing as opposed to airbrushing. I'm not saying that airbrushing is bad. I'd love to use an airbrush. Unfortunately, mine's just, not so great. I've got a single action gravity feed. Not gravity feed. Air feed. It's horrible. I love gravity feed. Either way, dry brushing gives you this kind of strainy, kind of matte look. As you can see where I'm brushing right now, close up it kind of looks like it's veiny and wormy, which adds to the Nurgle effect, which I really like. Next up, we're going to do the gore effects. I start off with Scab Red or Khorne Red. Pretty much I use the smallest brush that I have on hand, so I don't try to accidentally streak somewhere else that I shouldn't. But pretty much put the tip on there and I wiggle the brush around. Try not to go too out of control. Do this for all of the areas. On the Forge World Plague Marines, they have bullet holes in their head, which are awesome. Don't forget to paint these. I did to start with, and then my friend pointed out, "Oi, where's your bullet hole things?" And I'm like, oh, right, forgot about those. Never mind, I'll do them now. So, first off, base coat the gore areas with Scab Red. Next, you want to go over with a Blood Red, or Evil Sun Scarlet. Blood Red sounds easier to say. Once let that dry, and you should be right. I'm going to move on to the eyes, which is going to be Moot Green. Water it down quite a bit, pretty much the same as you would any other paint, and load your brush up with it. Because the visor on the Space Marine and Chaos Space Marine helmets are deep in recesses, it helps catch any overflow that comes off your brush, which can be really handy with these eyes in particular. You don't have to worry about it if you get it on the edge, because we're going to dry brush glow effects. Once Rusty Bitz is dried on your model, get the same silver or metallic color that you used prior, the Rusty Bitz, and just dry brush it over really quickly to give it back some of the more metallic look it should have. Kind of gives the feel of chipped rust as well. A rust that's, repetitively being worn and things like that. So once your eyes are dry as well, get some more Moot Green and very lightly dry brush and kind of stipple over the eyes to kind of give it a glow, as if they're glowing like a Nurgle. Alright, now that that's done, it's pretty much looking quite nice. You add bloodletter ink to all of the gory wound bits as well, and then once that's dry, get some Gloss Varnish and chuck that over there as well. That's going to make it look fresh and woundy. And there we have it, a painted Plague Marine. Thanks for watching, guys. This is my first tutorial video. Please leave comments and criticisms behind. Let me know how it goes. Here are some painted pictures to show you what the group looks like and the unit. Still have to base them. Yeah, feel free to subscribe, and thanks for watching once again. Have a good day.